Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as the fabric of this nation.
As many of you know, Minnesota is drowning in fraud.
In Minnesota, a state with the largest Somali immigrant population in the United States, extensive welfare fraud schemes have siphoned billions of taxpayer dollars from federal and state programs, primarily orchestrated by members of the Somali community. The most notorious case, Feeding Our Future, involved fake nonprofits submitting bogus meal claims during the COVID-19 pandemic, defrauding over $250 million in child nutrition funds.
A brazen scheme of staggering proportions.
The largest pandemic fraud in the United States.
The subjects in this case weren't interested in feeding our future. They were interested in feeding their own gluttony.
We have new details on a jury tampering scheme at the center of a major fraud case. Federal prosecutors indicted 5 people for their roles in offering a juror $120,000 for a not guilty verdict in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. The U.S. attorney says the group targeted juror 52 because she was the youngest juror and appeared to be the only juror of color. According to court documents, they dug up information on her family online and even put a GPS tracking device on her car to track her whereabouts. During their investigation, investigators uncovered a video of one of the defendants leaving a bag of money at the juror's home.
Trump needs to know that the American people have rejected Big Pharma, and they're tired of it, and they hate Albert Bourla, they hate Anthony Fauci. We don't need to be seeing Albert Bourla, who's just as hated as Fauci, at the White House. We need to see Fauci and Albert Bourla indicted for the things they've done.
Well, I couldn't agree with Alex Jones more on that, by the way. And I've got some videos of Trump speaking out about people like Ilhan Omar, his feelings towards her choice of helping immigration. And also, we're going to weigh in a little bit on a few other little things real quickly. But I do want to say this much. I agree 100% with Alex Jones on that statement. Trump needs to quit having these people at the White House, especially for his approval rating. I mean, because it's not, we need to bring that up a little bit. I wish that he would apologize to Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she's good people. She's good people. Everybody's so hating on her, but I think she was one of the ones that actually voted in a proposal to speed track all of the citizenships for these Afghanistans that Biden brought in. I don't know if you know that or not, but you guys look that back on her voting history. She voted against it. She said, no, these people need to be checked out extensively. And if you watched any of the withdrawal from what happened when Biden pulled everybody out really, really fast, you've seen people falling off of airplanes. So that was because there was, they say, oh, we vetted all of these people that came in here. And yes, you could say that the dude did, that one guy who shot the National Guards in Washington, D.C., yes, he was a CIA asset. And he was. And so that gave, he was vetted through that process of working with, the CIA, doing great things for America. But you really can't even say that, because it's hard to actually put in, we don't know what the guy was up to. The guy had his brother involved with it too. He could have been working as double agent, doing things great on our side, but also doing great on the other side. That happens all of the time. But, something that's also alarming to me, and I want to talk about this after I show you a few little clips of Trump speaking, is what's going on in California with this mass shooting that happened. And we have not, the shooter has not been found. Well, I'll talk about that here in a second. Check out Trump's response to the media when they ask him about the Somali/Muslim immigration money laundering team that Tim Walz, by the way, knew exactly what was going on. Even some of his people in Congress talk about this.
They don't need their people coming into our country telling us what to do.
And you're talking about
I'm talking about like Somalia, where you have a congressman goes around telling everybody about our Constitution, yet she supposedly came into our country by marrying her brother. Well, if that's true, she shouldn't be a congressman, and we should throw her the hell out of our country.
I can't agree with that statement more. She should have been deported a long time ago, even though she's, so quote unquote, been given citizenship into this country. She committed serious immigration fraud by doing that, by bringing her brother in under the circumstances, by marrying him. And you probably may or may not know this. I bring this up before, but an investigative journalist was able to figure out that she had married her brother because she was smoking a cigarette and had put it out at a processing facility on her way in and out of one of these, like, I guess, holding centers or whatever you want to call it, and used some DNA testing to figure out that that was her brother, because she denied it for years. And once that report came out, she could no longer deny it. This is something that she's even addressed, I had to do in school. The white man is bad. The white man is a threat to everything. The white man, even though I think she's married to a white dude. It's crazy. But anyhow, that's just something to think about. Ilhan Omar's country of Somalia is plagued by a lack of central government control. That could be a good thing. It could and couldn't be. But anyhow, it is a dookie butthole. But persistent poverty, hungry, resurgent terrorism, piracy, decades of civil war, corruption, and pervasive violence, and 70% of the population lives in extreme poverty and widespread feud insecurity. Somalia is consistently ranked among the world's most dookiest of countries, and corrupt countries as well, including bribery, embezzlement, and dysfunctional government. At all of this, and Ilhan Omar tells us how to run America. This is pretty wild how I don't know if you know this too, by the way. Ilhan Omar's family are currently involved, have been involved, always have been in the slave trade. She has a long history of that in her family, because in Somalia they buy, sell, and deal with slavery on a regular basis. That has not stopped. It's part of their economy. This is a true thing. And another thing people don't realize, Pakistan ranks the highest, but Somalian people right there are, I think, the second in line so far as the top inbreeders. And they've been doing this for decades or hundreds of years. And the inbreeding has been significant for a very long time, meaning that you are dealing with people that have an average IQ of 60, maybe. And if you're one of the smart ones down there, you bust out of there with a 75 IQ points, which is alarming considering the fact that when you bring them over here, I mean, like, you got to admit, man, like, somebody that's aware and smart typically is careful in their movements, and so they don't tend to do like crazy things. But these people don't care, and they do it without any regard, to the point to where even the people around them don't even see the wrong that's going on, because they do it so blatantly, because they just don't understand. They're literally not that smart. And then, by the way, quickly to touch base on that, with the Tim Walz scandal and the whole thing where dealing with the money laundering through these organizations that are helping kids with autism, is because of the fact that the IQ is so low in these areas of where all these Somalians had conglomerated. I'm not making fun of these people. I'm only stating the fact that their IQ ranks so low that they're borderline. There's another word for it, starts with an R, but that's what Trump called up Tim Walz. That the people that run these organizations will just write that off as autism, and then they get all this government grant money, and they have their way with it. And then if something happens and they get caught misusing this grant money, then they have an activist judge who's either paid off, or just that she may have a low IQ as well, who overturns these convictions, because we recently see a $7.2 million money laundering scheme that was done by one of these Somalians up there in the Minnesota area where Governor Tim Walz is governoring, and she overturns it after a jury convicted this man within 4 hours of actually doing this crime, which would have deported him and also prison time ahead of that. And the judge overturns that. It says, no, we're not going to do that. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to read him not guilty because,
Similar scams have targeted Medicaid's autism services, where providers inflated diagnoses among Somali children, jumping from $3 million in spending in 2018 to $399 million in 2023.
According to the charging documents, Hassan worked with others to recruit families from the Somali community, whether kids had autism or not. Prosecutors write that there was no child that Smart Therapy was not able to get qualified for autism services. Then, to drive up enrollment, they paid monthly kickbacks to families between $300 to $1,500 per child. Prosecutors say Hassan and her partners paid for it all through the millions worth of fraudulent Medicaid claims.
It didn't matter if the kids had autism. And what happened? Autism claims to Medicaid surged. In 2018, $3 million. By 2023, listen here, from $3 million to $400 million.
While housing stabilization programs created fictitious companies to build for non-existent services.
At the August trial for Abdi Fattah Yusuf, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company Promise Health out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife Lol Ahmed were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant or PCA scam. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Yusuf, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong. Judge West ruled that the state's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence. Jurors in the case can't believe the decision.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever.
And so let me, you're going to weigh in on Trump doubling down on the whole Tim Walz thing. I love this. This is good stuff.
You mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
You don't think that?
You have a problem with him? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into a state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
It's true. It's true. So in regard to what actually Trump was speaking of when it comes to money, is that Somalia gets a left butt cheek load of USAID money and the right butt cheek load of a whole bunch of other grant money or laundered money that comes out of Minneapolis and all the areas that Ilhan Omar be running. And we subsidize some other stuff. So like they get like Somalia is pretty much should be a part, it should be the United States, should be a state of the United States. As much money as they get from our country to exist, they should have, that should be our stuff. That should be cut and dry. We should be able to put be the 51st state. Unfortunately, that it's a Duke hole, so we don't really want it. But there's a lot of money gets moved over there, and the place is an absolute dump, which brings into question, where does all the money go that goes over there? Obviously, it's not to any of the infrastructure, not to the people, not to anything. And that place has the ability to grow food. It's a rich land. There's a lot of potential for that country to be wonderful, to be great again, or be great at some point. But anyhow, it's not. It's a complete and total dump, and which means that money more than likely is going into the hands of probably terrorists, just allegedly. Don't have any proof. But when all that money, you couldn't accidentally have some part of it to be somewhat nice, and that's a bad thing. That means that's why you need to cut the money off to all these people doing this stuff in many all these states that are laundering money over there. Tim Walz is an asshole because he knows exactly what's going on. He's making money off of it. This is part of his grift, and he doesn't want it to stop. He's the one hopping around like a dipshit. Yeah. But anyhow, let me dig into this other little bit here. Quickly just dive into my opinion of weird events that seem to happen a lot of the times. It doesn't always mean I'm right. I just like to look at both ends of the spectrum, but people are crazy and people do crazy things. And sometimes people are crazy and people are a commodity after that. When we think about the ability for social media and algorithms and AI to pick up on certain behavior characteristics of the human itself. And, people just do crazy things. This person that did this to this birthday party, to these people, these kids, it just could be a nutcase that actually went out there and just, randomly did something. There's a possibility. And there's also to me, a stronger, if not equal or stronger possibility that this was not just random, and that there is a good possibility that there may have been some form of heads up saying, hey, something's not right here, because you got to think about how people just usually can't keep their thoughts to themselves, and they're always on social media, and they're always interacting with other people that are like-minded. And, you could take, for instance, some of the things that were going on with Tyler Robinson, the guy who took out Charlie Kirk. Anyhow, a lot of people actually said were reporting these posts of this guy. Same thing with Tyler Crooks. I've got the first names of people all jacked up, but you know who I'm talking about. And, there was reports to the platforms of these people, and that should have red flagged immediately the right people to be in place to kind of like suppress this, stop this, at least make it, where it'd be not so easy for them to do this kind of stuff. And the system seemed to fail strategically. And so right now we're in this turmoil of all these Afghan Muslims that have shed the light on what they're up to, and when it comes to what happened in DC. So is this a distraction, or is this just a nutcase doing something, or is this a way for the left to expose or to expand on a crisis, because they leave none of that unturned? And then on top of that, when it comes to intel agencies that are supposed to be a part of keeping this thing from happening, there's strategic failures that seem to happen, and nobody gets fired. Nobody, you don't even hear about a public accountability. Like, yeah, we found out who crapped the pot on this job, and they're fired, or something has happened. And sometimes, if not more often than not, you'll find out that they got promoted, and that's alarming to me. And they have not found this person who did this crime in California, and with the mass shooting. I hate using these words because YouTube is going to flag this, but anyhow, we'll just work through it. And that's alarming as well, because it shouldn't be that hard to find these people. To me, it's almost like, was this a professional job? Was this designed to actually be part of a narrative? And they had, they'll find somebody who did do it, and, may or may not be the person who did it. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole thing, what happened with Charlie Kirk. It just seems like a lot more to the situation. I'm even questioning if they have the right person. I know that sounds strange, but there's so many aspects of this person who may or may not exist. I sound a little bit like Candace Owens, but we don't have a mugshot. We do have a mugshot, but we don't have this person actually being brought in, processed. We don't have hospital footage. We don't. The FBI took all hospital footage of that time and put that under wraps. All the witnesses are being gagged. The person that's done this is not going to, Charlie Kirk is not going to be able to, you don't see him in front of the cameras. It's like, it's not going to be televised, which I don't think that state they do, but there's so many things that's just weird. And so when I see about these things, I just question a lot. Let me know what you think in the comment sections of my thoughts. And thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful day.